G'day, my name's Paul and welcome to Jag Tales. I'm a Jaguar enthusiast. Over the years I've collected a number of Jaguars. The story I want to tell you today is about my 1983 XJS 6-cylinder manual. Let's get on with it. What I have here is a 1989 4-litre AJ6 motor out of an XJ40. In the early 90s this became surplus stock and I was in the right place to be able to grab a bargain. I had no idea what I was going to do with it, but being a Jaguar nut, I couldn't resist it. So I brought it home and left it in my shed. It stayed there for some 35 years, and in 2020 I finally got around to buying myself a 6-cylinder manual XJS. The plan was to put the 4-litre motor in it and upgrade the electronics using the Haltec ECU and coil packs so I could run sequential injection, sequential spark, wideband oxygen sensors, NOx sensors, and aluminium radiator, electric fans. Finally I was to get to work on this 4-litre motor. I dusted it off and I removed the cam covers, and I was absolutely delighted to find out that this motor was absolutely brand spanking new. It had never been run. The first job was to install the rivet nuts in the cam covers to hold the coil packs on. So you had to examine the inside of the cam cover, note where the cams themselves were and the strengthening ribs on the spark plug tubes. Once I found that out, I was able to make myself up a jig using the centre of the spark plug tube to locate where I was going to drill and place the rivet nuts. The next job was to mount the NOx sensors. There were bosses moulded into the engine block beneath the exhaust manifold. I made up a jig and clamped it to the side of the engine block, drilled the block at 90 degrees, filed the rough casting smooth, tapped it out to 6mm, mounted the NOx sensors, and then made a shield to go over the exhaust manifold to protect the sensors from the radiant heat. The next job was to make an air duct to go on the back of the air cleaner to supply air up to the stepper motor idle control. I chose to use the cam sensor out of an AJ16 motor. I removed the rotor and removed 5 of the lugs, leaving 1 there to drive the Haltec. At this stage, we were ready to put the engine back in the car. Before I did, I cleaned up underneath the bonnet, painted it all, made it look nice and tidy, even replaced the aluminium on the heat shields. Then it was time to rally the troops and we put the motor back in the car. I'll just speed this up so it doesn't bore you to death. Now for the fun part. Armed with a circuit diagram out of the workshop manual, and the diagrams supplied by Haltec A and B and their quick start guide, I was able to plan the wiring, mounted the Haltec computer on the inside of the mudguard where the coils used to be, and laid out the wiring across the top of the engine of the car. The wiring completed, it was time to fill the engine with oil, and we removed the oil pressure gauge sending unit, and with an oil syringe we injected oil into the oil galleries to prime the pump and to force oil up into the crankshaft journals. With the spark plugs removed, we cranked the engine over until we got oil pressure. At this stage it was time for Andrew to take over the job, and he programmed the computer and worked out the base map, and we loaded it in, and it was time to see if this engine would run. We're ready to go, Ann. What have we got to do?
Well, I was going to crank it for a bit and see what happens.
Okay.
Should have no fuel, so it shouldn't.
First time we cranked over a 35-year-old motor. All right, check the fuel leaks. All right, okay, we're going to try again. Andrew forgot to send the instructions to from the laptop to the computer, so now we're going to try it again.
It's alive! Is it backfire?
Yep.
In the inlet?
Outlet. Ignition timing is too far advanced.
Need a timing light.
try it again. Almost. Interesting. Our ignition time is not right.
So,
All right, call it a day.
I think we might come back with time.
Come back.
tonight.
When I was checking out the timing, I found that I'd made a rookie mistake and overlooked the fact that the reluctor ring on the AJ40 motor had 3 missing teeth. What I had to do was to get a reluctor ring off an AJ16 motor, which only had 1 missing tooth. When he's coming to watch the show.
Well,
Really?
that seems worse. More.
Properly, so it wouldn't idle very well, but it was running.
A bit rough.
Bit rough. Finally, exhaust is burning off the oil. The vacuum leak. Okay, finally got this motor running. It's only been running for a few minutes. Watching the temperature gauge. The alternator's charging. Then we're going to check the temperature from exhaust. Firing on all cylinders.
Maybe not number one fire and go, number one's a bit cold.
Yep.
We've still got that disconnected going to the spark plug. Oh, it's because it's got a high resistance lead on the spark plug. So we'll change that, eh? Check it again. Yep. That spark plug lead off the old AJ6 motor is high resistance lead, so we're killing the spark in that number one cylinder. We're going to change that now. Well, we've just put our new wheels and tyres on the car. Andrew's torquing them up, and we're just about to lower the hoist and drive it off for the first time in well over 12 months since this project started. Righto, this is the all systems go.
And hopefully.
Hopefully.
How do I adjust the seat? Clutch pedal.
To your left and forward. Hard across. It's moving.
clear, straight back?
All straight.
Good.
Dodgy for it.
It works.
Well,
It works.
it works.
One take.
Excellent.
What did you say?
Okay, the Haltec, I've taken the cover off the Haltec, and that's where I've mounted the computer. Had to make brackets up to mount everything, of course. It's an Elite 2500, and we're using the up-to-date ESP program. So that controls everything, the thermostatic fans, the fuel pump. It controls basically everything for the engine, the coil, sequential injection, sequential spark. The knock sensors have got to be, we've got to get this motor run in yet and put it on the dyno, and then we can tune it for knock to get the maximum performance out of the engine. So the whole thing worked out pretty well, pretty neat. I'm really happy with it. The aluminium radiator took a lot of work to put it in there. I bought it from Amazon, and even though it's made in China, it was supposed to fit, but it didn't fit. The dowels were in the wrong place, and I had to make a complete bracket up for underneath it to hold the condenser, the radiator and the fans, and then I had to modify the top support bracket as well. So hours and hours of working just making brackets. There's brackets for everything.
Just to finish the job, I made a cover to cover the Haltec and all the wiring, painted it the same colour as underneath of the bonnet, and that made the whole thing look nice and neat.
All the wiring, which was such a mess, I actually laid it along the suspension stiffening strut, and I used the sleeve that's on behind the XJ6 dashboards. We had to put fuses in, relays, more relays in. There's a wideband oxygen sensor driver in there, and I've used a 65 amp circuit breaker to run the power up to my relays and fuses. The wiring required from the fuel pump I actually picked up out of the original wiring, and that's all been done and terminated just next to the clutch master cylinder.
Here are some of my other Jaguars. If you'd like to hear their stories, please give me a thumbs up, and thank you for watching Jag Tales.